Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babyar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. My guest today is Jenn Fortner. Jenn has been a part of the podcast before and has just does some good thinking on support raising, or MPD, Ministry Partner Development, whatever you and your organization want to call that. Jenn, I know there's a lot of different ways that people refer to support raising. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and what organizations that you've worked with, what is they called support raising?
Yeah, we call it financial partnership development, pretty close to ministry partnership development. But I mainly work for Assemblies of God World Missions. I take a lot of our new missionary staff who are going for the first time on an assignment and have no idea how to raise their support, and provide some training and then a lot of coaching as they work to get to 100% and on their way to the field. So currently, right now, I've got about 73 that I'm coaching and or training, some process in the middle of one of those processes. So yeah, I've got a large group and I love what I do. I've been at it for around 7 years with this specific role in this organization with Assemblies of God World Missions, and love it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about your family.
Sure. I'm living in Springfield, Missouri. I have a husband. His name is Zach. And we've got 2 kiddos we are learning how to do a lot more parenting right now than usual with the whole coronavirus stuff. But I've got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Right.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Very cool. And Jenn, we both live in the Ozarks, but we're just kind of in different places within the Ozarks. You're kind of the northeast side, and I'm kind of the southwest side. So We're not exactly next door neighbors, but we both can get to Branson pretty easily if we need to. That's the important thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jenn, the reason that I invited you to come back on and speak once again on the coronavirus is you get to interact with so many people that are raising and living off support. I'm already hearing some good things out there about support raising, even in the middle of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And also I'm hearing some lies that the devil would want us to believe about it being impossible and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted you to come on today and set the record straight and share with us what are some of the things that you're learning about support raising in the time of a pandemic. So I'll just kick it to you and say, go for it.
Yeah, let's do this thing. So I've been learning a lot as I've been talking on a weekly basis with a lot of people out there on the front lines of support raising, and kind of trying to really take good notes of what's working, what's not, how are people feeling, how are financial partners responding, how are potential financial partners responding, all of those kind of things. And wanted to talk a little bit today about some of the things that I'm learning. First, video conference appointments are working.
No way.
It's true. Yes. I have been talking with so many workers that are having, Aaron, amazing appointments with individuals, and they're adding to their support teams during this time. So, I don't think it's time to stand still and do nothing. As I've coached, I've seen a couple of different sentiments. One is, yeah, let's keep going forward with Zoom appointments. And the other is the person that's sort of standing still going, I'm terrified. I don't want to ask. I don't want to talk to anybody right now because I'm afraid that they're in a bad financial situation and I don't want to move forward, and kind of like a deer in headlights type of a situation I'm seeing a lot. And as I've coached people and saying, no, I'm seeing people that are reaching out for Zoom appointments, really having great, profound ministry moments and really great, profound additions to their team. So
why do you think people are, you and I, we can both guess and bat this around for a while, but what do you think is one of the key, I said the term lies that we believe, perhaps it's not quite that harsh. Maybe it's more harsh than that, but what keeps people from believing that it's possible, or even keeps them from attempting a Zoom call or what have you?
Okay, so this, I don't know if this is going to sound bad or good or what, but my experience as a coach, I'm coaching quite a few folks, and I've been telling people, and I've been noticing the same thing, that, okay, outside of, let's take the coronavirus, let's take the pandemic completely aside, Aaron, and pretend that it doesn't exist.
That'd be great, but okay.
Yeah, right. Without that even being a thing, sometimes it's hard to ask people for money, right? That's like
Yeah.
that's a common thing that folks that are doing this for the first time or even the 50th time run into, where they might be leaning on old perspectives. They may not be, staying in the word with what God has to say on support raising, all kinds of things. So motivation for making phone calls, appointments, that is challenging in and of itself for some folks, or people experience challenges. And what I'm seeing are those people that are already sort of having a hard time just doing it are now doubling down because the pandemic exists. And what I'm seeing
Right.
is, if we can break through and realize, hey, if your motivation for somebody is to not to ask them is just based on fear, that would
Hmm.
probably be there anyway to some degree.
Yes.
And I think that it's important to really check your motivation as to why you're not asking. Is it because it doesn't make sense because they just lost their job or whatever it is? It's bad timing. Let's just put it that way, And so I have
Hmm.
red flags that raise just because of that in and of itself. But let's say that you decide not to ask somebody for a Zoom appointment right now because you know that they've been sick recently or a family member has, or whatever the case may be. It's just bad timing. The point being, like, is that the motivation, or is it because of fear? And
Right.
that fear might exist outside of the pandemic anyway. And I think it's really important to realize what your motivation for not asking is.
That makes a lot of sense, because really what's going on there is, and you say it really kindly, so I'll say it a little more blunt. Um, if you're going to find an excuse to not uh, do the whole thing of inviting somebody to partner with you and give money and pray and all that stuff to be a part of your team, if you're going to find an excuse no matter what, now you have a built-in one with the pandemic. Like
Right.
there it is. But if you just completely remove the pandemic, if you're going to find excuses anyway, you'll just find something different. Is that? I mean, again, you say it much nicer than me, but I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, and we're not dummies here. We have a podcast in play because we know that this is a challenging endeavor for a lot of folks, and that's why we provide organizations that provide training and coaching and all of those type of things really do see healthy, pursuit of support raising. So it's a
Yes.
challenging topic in and of itself, and let's not
Yes.
just say that that's not true. But yeah, if you're doubling down on that and getting the fear front from just asking, and then the fear front from the pandemic,
Hmm.
that's hard. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to kind of realize and sort of an emotionally intelligent way, try to figure out, okay, why is it that I'm not asking? Is it because I'm just afraid in general, or is it because this doesn't make sense for this
Right.
person at this
Right.
very moment today?
And I
So
mean, what you're not saying is ask everybody all the time. I mean, and you already touched on this, but I'll just double down on this one. If you
mhm.
call someone and say, "How you doing?" Like, "Well, I just got fired," that might not be the moment to go in for an appointment, right? But
Yes,
there's other people that are thriving right
right.
now in this economy, and obviously there's still a lot to be concerned about and pray about and be sensitive about. But
Hmm.
don't answer no for someone who could
Right.
potentially say yes, right?
Yep, absolutely. So
Okay.
that's one. Video conference appointments are working. I'm seeing them work. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
Number two is, if I'm seeing a lot of the people that I work with say, "Oh my gosh, Jen, all of my supporters are asking me for some reason if I'm still called, if I'm still going to go."
Uh,
'Cause the people that I work with are mainly going overseas, so they've got the travel component.
right.
But a lot of people are even saying, with this economy, are you still going to go on staff, or are you still going to go, do the assignment that the Lord put in front of you that you're support raising for? And so I think my number two thing that I'm seeing is, if you have not done a newsletter in a while, or even if you just did one recently, but it was pre-coronavirus, Now
Hmm.
is the time to get one done.
Yeah.
Um, and as I've been hearing that main question from potential supporters and existing supporters, are you still going into your ministry assignment? You probably need to stave off any doubt your supporters are having by sending out a short newsletter that sort of shares, the reassurance that you're feeling you're called to ministry now more than ever. And
Hmm.
I think the reminder needs to be in there that there are some amazing opportunities to minister to people as they're searching for meaning, as they're searching for the Lord in the midst of all of this. And you're really excited to get to the front lines of that.
Good,
So,
good. And of course, this isn't the newsletter podcast. We do talk about that on a few different
yeah.
podcasts, and we often talk about communicating at least something monthly. By the time this records, it'll probably be, I'm gonna guess mid-May, and the coronavirus will have changed the world for about 2 months. And so I'm just gonna double down, triple down, quadruple down on what you just said, Jen. If you have not touched base with your supporters, preferably personally, not just a newsletter, but if they haven't heard from you in the last couple of months, you're overdue. Wow, flashing red lights. Like you've got to reorganize your schedule immediately to let your supporters know that you're continuing to be involved in ministry, assuming that you are, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Jen, you said something recently about porch picnics. I think I read
Yeah.
it on your website. Tell us what's a porch picnic? What does that look like with support raising in a time of a pandemic?
Yeah, so I coach a couple who shared this idea that was really working for them, and they called them porch picnics. And so, if you have local, folks that are potential supporters or even supporters, let's do it either way. But so local appointments, think about possibly having a porch picnic for those who are comfortable in the midst of this. And some of the instructions for that is, basically you set up an appointment like you would on Zoom or face to face, but you take them dinner, lunch, coffee, or whatever.
Hmm.
You go pick up some food with obviously washed and sanitized hands, or use Uber Eats or Grubhub or DoorDash or whatever it is that you use. And then
Hmm.
you essentially do the appointment from a distance on a porch.
Mm.
Or outside at a table or whatever it is that you're. And I think it's important to understand that not all potential partners are going to be comfortable with this. So
Right.
asking them
Yeah.
about if they're comfortable with it, but
Yeah.
making a suggestion for this could be a really good idea.
That's a good point. That's something you want to be sensitive to. And also, you might want to remain sensitive to that, even as, and again, at the time we're recording this is early May. I'm guessing this will be published mid May. But, some states are going to start opening back up soon or already are. But who knows what's going to happen over the next week or two, at least in the US, as far as spiking and things like that go. And of course, I know we have listeners outside of the US, but here's the point. As some sort of reemergence into the real world happens, we're going to need to remain sensitive to the social distancing and connecting with people. But if possible, if you can sit down with somebody face to face when doing a support raising meeting, even if you have masks on and you're 8 feet apart, that's going to be better in most cases than a virtual appointment, right, Jen?
Yeah, and everybody's level of comfortability is going to vary. So if you're one of those folks that is sort of saying, "Yeah, I'm comfortable with a lot," like, just realize that not everybody's going to be in that camp, and you probably need to make sure that you are making other people feel comfortable and giving them options um,
Yes.
that make them feel comfortable. So,
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I have a couple of friends on social media that are on the opposite end of the spectrum. One was recently stating that they hadn't really left even their yard for almost 2 months.
mhm.
Um, and where I'm at, I can get power walks and stay away from people and bike rides and stuff like that. And then I have another friend who can't. He's in a country where they're not allowed to leave their house. And then I have other people that are like, oh, no big deal. I go shopping. I just try and stay away from people, and they don't wear a mask or anything else. And so there's quite a spectrum of how
Right.
people are approaching this. So maybe don't assume that you know how the other person is going to approach that, and feel them out as you're trying to set up an appointment, rather than dictating to them exactly where you're gonna be and how it's gonna look and all that stuff. You might have to feel them out, but please remember, the point is to get the appointment with somebody so you can share with them about great commission work that you're
Right.
doing for the kingdom and to invite them to be a part. That's the really important thing that you want to do, but with appropriate safety measures, right, Jenn?
Yes, absolutely. Really well said, Aaron.
Well, Jenn, I know we could go on and on, but I know we also intended to kind of keep this as a shorter podcast. And then also I want to drive people to your blog. You have a great blog where you talk about different things related to support raising. And so actually you have a 7, I'll call it bulleted points on 7 things that you're learning about support raising during a pandemic on your website. And so if you haven't already bookmarked jennfortner.com, JENNFORTNER.com, I highly suggest that the listeners put that in your occasional or constant reading queue regarding support raising, because Jenn gets a chance to interact with more people via support raising coaching than anybody I know. And so Jenn, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. As always, you bring a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. Any final points or words of wisdom you want to leave us with today?
God's still on the throne. He's outside of time. He knows what's up. That's my final thought. So,
Amen. Love it. Love it. All right, Jenn. Hey, thank you so much for joining us on the Eurasia podcast.
yeah, you're welcome. And thanks for everybody who's listening, and God bless y'all.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.